Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our program. So this is just a continuation on what is business. So today we're going to look at the command economy, which is simply socialism or communism as well. It is a planned economy. So I've done the video on the market economies. We said there are 4 types of economies: traditional economies. We have market economies, which is capitalism. Today we're going to look at the market command economy, which is socialism. And then we have a mixed economy, which is a combination of socialism and the capitalism. So I've done the video on the market economies and the capitalism. So this video is going to be based on the socialism. First of all, I'm going to give the key features of a command economy or socialism or communism economy. Then I'm going to look at the practical examples of command economies or socialism. Then number 3.3, we're going to look at the advantages of a command economy. Then I'm going to give disadvantage of command economies, just as I did in the case of capitalism as well. Then after that, I'm going to give a quick summary at the end, just as we usually do in all the episodes, just to sum up really what we learn in each video. So in the video for capitalism, I got some backlashes, people saying there is no capitalism, this is that, there's no free market in capitalism, there's no laissez-faire in capitalism. So laissez-faire, which is a French term, simply means letting things to take their own courses, which is all about free marketing or free enterprises. That's all about. So this free marketing is all about capitalism, really. It's all of, that is why it is called market economies. So first of all, in the case, it is based on the command economy, the video, planned economy. So the government really, this concept of centralization, the government having the strong hand, and there's no concept of free marketing or laissez-faire or free enterprise. So in the case of socialism, we cannot talk about socialism or communism without talking about Marxism, Karl Marx, which is the ideologies of pure communism or collectivism. Then after that, we had like Leninism, which is a concept ideologies of Lenin. Then the concept of Lenin simply meant based on the dictatorship of proletarianism through revolution. So in the case of Karl Marx, it was like the fight between bourgeoisie and the proletarianism, or the boss or the rich versus the poor or the working class. Then after that, Stalin or Stalinism take over. Like in the case of Stalinism, it focused on the centralization, government having the strong hand on having the final say really. And the totalitarianism, like the case of totalitarianism, is all about monopoly, having the iron fist, which is associated with Stalin, Joseph Stalin. After that, we have like Maoism as well, Mao Zedong. He was like the president of China. So we're going to begin, ladies and gentlemen. So in this case, less people won by the written word than by the spoken word. By the written words fly away, spoken words fly away, but written words remain. In other words, written words remain while spoken words fly away. But since I'm recording, I think the spoken words are going to remain for generations to come, maybe for my children and your children as well. So this is why education is essential. So let's begin, ladies and gentlemen, on the command economy, planned economy, which is all about socialism or socialist economy or communist economy as well. So a command economy, also known as a planned economy or socialism. So in this case, we say there's no laissez-faire, there's no free enterprise or free market, aka socialism, is a system in which the government makes all key economic decisions regarding the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. In the case of capitalism, all the production, distribution, and the consumptions are left in the case of privatization in the individuals and companies or businesses. But in this case, because it is a planned economy, the government takes care of all the production, distribution, and consumptions, which is all about supply and demand, really. So the government controls resources and determines what is produced, how much is produced, and at what price goods and services will be sold. So the government make all the major decisions. What is produced, how much is will be produced, the quantity, and the price as well. The government set the price as well at each thing, the value, which means the value of each product, and the price as well. So this type of economy is usually associated with socialist or communist systems where the state seeks to achieve equality and the public welfare. So in the case of communist, it's all about collectivism, really, equality, everyone being equal. If you have 1 apple or 2 apples, 3 apples, I have to share the other 2, so we all have 1 apple. So it's all about collectivism, equality in the case of object or property, sharing is caring in the case of communism and socialism as well. In the case of equality, when I talk about equality here, because this is based on the command economy, it's always about the rich versus the poor. So we're going to look at the key features of command economy, which is point 1. It is based on the centralized planning. In the case of centralization, it's all about the government having the final say or planning everything. So it is all like the central banks are the ones who control like the interest rates, the one who print money, like monetary policies. We have like the fiscal policies as well, like the taxation, expenses, revenue as well, which the government used to improve the economy of the country. So the first key feature is like centralized planning. So the government or central authority plans and controls the entire economy, including production targets, resource allocation, and pricing. So this is done through multi-year plans. In the case of Stalin, he had like the 5-year plans. The production 5 years after 5 years, we do this after 5 years, harvesting. So the second key feature is the public ownership. In the case of public, it's meaning government. Privatization is individuals and the businesses. So public ownership, meaning the government have the final say as well. So in a command economy or socialism economy, most resources like land, factories, etc. are owned by the government, and private properties is either limited or non-existence. So in the case of privatization, does not exist here, or 1 or 2% is left on privatization. 90 or 80% is government owned within the nation. The third key feature is like no market forces, meaning no free market in this case. So unlike market economies is simply referring back to capitalism, where supply and demand determines prices and production. The government sets these factors in a command economy, or the government sets these factors in the socialism economy. The fourth key feature is like guaranteed employment and services. In the case of socialism or communism, everyone is guaranteed for employment and services as well, free services. So the government assures that every citizen has access to basic needs like housing, case of renting, same price as well, healthcare and employment, though the quality of services may vary. Like the quality may vary, but still everyone have free access to housing, healthcare and employment as well. So the last key feature is like lack of consumer choice. In this case, in the capitalism, the consumer or the buyer is like the boss, because whatever you desire, whatever you demand, you have to be supplied. So people become more competitive to meet the consumer requirements. In the case of socialism or command economy, planned economy, the seller is the boss, not the consumer. So the producer is the boss because there's a lack of consumer choice. So since the government dictates like things like production, consumers often have limited options when it comes to goods and services, limited options, limited varieties when it comes to goods and services. So we say the goods are tangible, physical things, services are intangible things like online, or which can be done through the mobile phone or the phone. And there's limited incentive for innovation. In the case of capitalism, innovation is driven by the profit and competition as well, because there's a lack of competition here. There's little incentive for innovation. So profit is not the main goal in socialism or capitalism. So we're going to look at the second point, which is practical examples of command economies or socialist economies, because I like to keep everything practical, real world examples. So the first example, it will go like the Soviet Union, the USSR, which simply means Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. There's the USSR, which was founded like in December 1922, the end of the year. I think that was the 30th December 1922. So the Soviet Union today is known as the Russian Republic. So at a fully planned economy where the government control all the industries, including agriculture, energy and manufacturing as well, all of those sectors were under the government. So central planners set production quotas in the case of Stalin. So you have to meet the quotas. For factories, determine agricultural output and assign jobs to citizens. Citizens were assigned job. So everyone had to be kept busy, not having some people just sitting there, the rich and the poor doing everything. All the citizens were assigned job. So the system was designed to ensure like equality, rich and poor, but often resulted in inefficiencies, shortages, and lack of consumer goods as well. So the second example, it is based like in the North Korea. So we have two Koreas, North and South Korea. In the North, today we have Kim Jong-un. So he's the current president. So in the North Korea is one of the few remaining countries with a larger command economy or socialist or communism economy. The government controls almost all aspects of economic life, including agriculture, industry, and trade as well. Or in the case of trade, it can be like exports and imports as well. So there's a little private enterprise. In the case of private, there's little free marketing, and the most resources are directed towards the state's goals, such as military spending in this case, like having the H bombs, the nuclear bombs. So basic necessities are provided by the state, but the country struggles really, since the state control everything. All the basics like healthcare, infrastructure, education is provided by the state, but the country struggles with widespread poverty and food shortages. In the case of North Korea, people usually laugh, the leaders are doing good, all the bourgeoisies or the rich are doing good, but the majority of the people are like third class or the middle class. Is only a little percent, and the first class is like the ruling class. If your father is like in the military or your uncle, then you have more saying in the case of North Korea. So the third example is based like in Cuba. In the case of Cuba, we see the contra Fidel Castro and the Che Guevara as well, the man of revolution, Che Guevara. So the Cuba also operates under a command economy, which simply means socialism. In the case of Fidel Castro, he was really like he adopted communism as well, some Leninism ideologies, which simply means in the case of Leninism, it's all about dictatorship of proletarianism led by a revolution. So Cuba operates under a command economy where the government controls most of industries, particularly like the healthcare, education, and transportation as well. While the government provides like free education or free healthcare, which means everyone have access to free healthcare and education. Many consumer goods are scarce due to strict planning and limited foreign trade as well. So in this case, free education, free healthcare is like similar to Russia today. So in recent years, Cuba has allowed some private business as well, like they have made some changes, modifications, such as restaurants and the tourism services that are left as a privatization to operate in a limited market economy. So in the case of market economy, there is a capitalism, not a socialism. So the last example is based like in China. So we're talking about the pre-1976, in the case of the Maoism ideologies. So before, pre the 1976, so before the 1976, in the case of Maoism, he adopted the Marxism ideology, then the Leninism ideologies as well. So he combined all of them, same as Stalin did. But in the case of Maoism, he came with his own ideology as well, after taking Marxism and the Leninism ideologies. So today we have like the Xi Jinping is the president of China. So before its market reforms, like in 1976, China operated under strict command economy or socialism or communist economy, similar to the Soviet Union or Russia or the USSR. The government owned all lands and resources, and economic decisions were made through centralized planning. In the case of centralized planning, the government have the final say on what to do. So, however, the inefficiency of the system led to food shortages and economic stagnations. In the case of economic stagnations, like the economic being held behind, so there's no an improvement really. There's no movement of money. That's all about the economic stagnation. So after the reforms, China adopted the market-oriented or adopted some ideologies of capitalism policies, moving away from the command economy model, moving away from the pure communism or pure socialism as well. So in this case, I think Xi Jinping is doing good, because today we have like a Jack Ma, billionaires in China. So whenever you see billionaires, there's a little touch of capitalism. And since you have billionaires, that we have already created class difference in the society. So you have the people who are super rich, ultra rich. You have the middle class, first class, middle class, and the third class, or the third people, third class, whatever you call them. So you have like the top 1%, maybe the 20%, and the rest, the 70 or 60%, are like the third class, really. So once you have the rich, the billionaires, millionaires, millionaire, trillionaires in the country, the country is no longer pure socialism, or there's no longer equality between the rich and the poor. So it's no longer pure communism, as many people misunderstand, or there's many misconceptions that China is still pure socialism or communist country. So it's just a flag, but the ideologies that have shifted from the pure socialism or communism to some adaptation of capitalism ideologies or market-oriented policies. So the third point is based on the advantages of command economy or socialist economy. So the first one is like the economic stability, which means the balance, economic balance, that the advantage of government controlling all the aspects of life in the nation. Having the equilibrium, really, that's all about stability. So the government controlling production and prices, command or socialism economies can avoid the fluctuations up and down and crisis. In the case of crisis, market crisis. So that occur like in the market economies, such as inflation and recessions. In the market economy, those are like the things which happens in the capitalism. You have inflation, you have a recession, hyperinflation, stagflation, depression as well, deflation. So the third one, the advantage of socialism or command economy, is like the social equality between the rich and the poor. That's all about equality here. So the command economies aim to reduce wealth disparities or differences by providing equal access to resources such as like housing, healthcare, and education for all citizens. That's why if you go to Russia, primary school, secondary school, and even university, it's just free. But if you go to America, you can do primary and secondary school, which is like public schools, free education, maybe you're paying. But to reach the college or university in America becomes so expensive. Only the rich people, maybe on the sons of the senators, the politicians, they're the ones who can afford like big universities, like the Harvard University. And the more quality, the greater the university, the more quality the education will be for you. And so it is like the rich, once the rich politician goes out, all their sons, it will be the ones who take or overtake them. So you have like the poor, like the black or the minorities, having just normal jobs or roaming around the street day and night. So you have only like the rich remaining rich, the concept of the rich remaining rich and the poor remaining poor in all the generations. That's all about the social equality or inequality in this case, the gap between the rich and the poor. So the third advantages of socialism or command economy is like government priorities. So the government have like the first priorities in the country or the nation. So the government can direct like resources toward the national priorities, such as like infrastructure development. You have military spending or larger scale public works projects as well. In the case of infrastructure, it's like building schools, roads, healthcare, things like the hospitals. So number 4, we're going to look at the dark side as well, disadvantages of a command economy or socialism. That is what the capitalists are waiting for. So I've done the video on the capitalism. People start saying there's no capitalism. There's no, because they heard about some disadvantages about capitalism. So we have many fanatics. I hope there will be no more keyboard fighters in the comment in the case of socialism as well. So the disadvantages of command economy as well. So guys, before you comment as well, you have to do your own research. Just a quick Google research will clear your doubts. What is capitalism? What is socialism? Then you get your doubts will be cleared. So I've done my own research. I've done my own homework. It is up to you as well, as the viewer, as you're watching, to do your own homework as well before commenting, saying you don't know, this is not capitalism, this is not socialism. It is easy to say, but hard to prove it. So there are many people who knows how not to error than to correct how not to do wrong than to correct the errors of others. So disadvantages, ladies and gentlemen, of command economy or socialism or communism is like, first of all, is the inefficiency and waste. So without the competitive forces of a market economy or capitalism, command economy or socialism often experience inefficiency, overproduction as well. So in this case, we have more surplus, underproduction maybe, less surplus. Central planners, in this case, the central planners of the government, may not have the information needed to allocate resources effectively, leading to waste. So in this case, you have like efficiency and waste, or some people, the rich might have more than the poor, or one region or one country might have more than another, while the others are starving. In the case of USSR, like Ukraine, people died with starvation and things like that during the time of starving. So the second one is like the lack of innovation, because there's no competition and the profit is not there. So you have like a lack of innovation or lack of inspiration or motivation as well. The case of socialism or capitalism, pure socialism or communism. Socialism and communism, command economy. Lack of innovation. So since the government controls all economic activity, there's a little incentive for businesses to allocate or to innovate or to improve products, as profits are not a motivating factor. So third one is like the shortages and surpluses. In the case of surpluses, is like producing more than needed. In the case of shortages, producing less than the demand. So it's all about supply and demand, really. So the command economies often face shortages of essential goods like foods, clothing, due to mismanagement or poor planning as well. So at the same time, surpluses like overproduction of unwanted goods may occur because the government decides production targets without considering consumer demand. So in the case of the government, because the producer is the boss, the government the boss, as a consumer, you have no say. What if the seller say or what if the government say? You have to consume it. Even though you don't like it, you have to take it, whatever the way it comes. So there's like the shortages, sometimes surpluses. The disadvantage is like suppression of freedom. That's what most people hate capitalism, or that's what most of people hate communism and socialism. Suppression of freedoms like the free speech, free press. So in command economy or socialism, individual choice or options or varieties is restricted, as the government dictates where people work, what they can buy, and what industries operate. So in this case, if you have like connections, then you get hired. In this case, if you have connection like in the government, then maybe if you have an industry or businessman, maybe you might give him more priority. So it's all about connection in this case. So this can lead to dissatisfaction and lack of personal freedom. In the case of socialism, dissatisfaction or disfaction, like it's more emotional. In the case of capitalism, dissatisfaction or dissatisfaction comes as a case of financial, because in the case of capitalism, you have things like the inflation, recession, you have this hyperinflation, you have like the stagflation. But in the case of socialism or communism, dissatisfaction comes as a lack of emotion, because as a consumer, there is suppression of freedom, or maybe you're not getting what you require, your requirements are not being met. So there's all about the difference between capitalism and socialism. So what can you say, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion about the command economy? In the case of command, it is a planned economy. Communism or socialism, maybe it can be pure communism, which is all about collectivism, having equal share in the country. But it's not really far from when you go to the religious side. That's all about Jesus. What he taught, he was really a true communist, like having equal share. If you have two apples, share to another. That's really communism in Christianity, but people don't even understand it. But if you go to the so-called Christian countries, they're actually practicing capitalism. So in the case of capitalism, capital is all about money. In the case of socialism, social is all about this social, really socializing, all about people. So in the case of capitalism, the shortest definition is money before people. In the case of socialism, it's all about health or people before money. So capitalism put profit first, but in the case of socialism, profit is not a priority, and there's no competition in socialism as there's a higher competition in capitalism. So in summary, ladies and gentlemen, the command economy or socialism or communist economy allows the government to control, in this case can be planned instead of free marketing or laissez-faire or free enterprise, and direct the economy to meet the national goals and ensure basic needs for its population. So it is people before profit. So while the system can promote equality in the case of rich and the poor, and the stability, balance or equilibrium, it often results in inefficiency, limited consumer choice, so because the requirements of the consumer are not met, and the less options as well, and the lack of innovation, because there's no profit as a motivator, there's no competition. So countries like the Soviet Union, North Korea, and pre-reform China, in the case of Maoism ideologies, exemplify the strengths and the weaknesses of this economic model. So today, most countries have shifted towards mixed. In the case of mixed economies, it's all the blending between capitalism and socialism, like the Scandinavian or the Nordic model, which I've done the video on that as well. Or most people shifted, or most countries have shifted to say mixed or market economies or capitalism economies. So though command or socialism economies elements still exist in some regions or in some countries, like the North Korea, so the government still have the final say in what if the citizens ought to do. So ladies and gentlemen, just as we began, I think this is the end. So I didn't want to do the video on socialism, but since people started arguing, I thought that would be much great to clear the misunderstandings and to show the difference between capitalism, which is market economy, and the communism or socialism, which is all about command economy or planned economy. So ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I like your comments, positive and negative, maybe likes and dislikes. All of those are counted as interaction, really. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. Ciao.